Hey, this is James. Thanks for visiting my website page with the free stuff. I'm offering these free things to you because there's information out there. Pretty much everything costs somebody something. And in the family court industry, if you want to get information like the information below this video, you're going to pay all kinds of money. You're going to pay maybe hundreds or thousands of dollars to get this information from an attorney or somebody else who claims to be a family court expert. You're going to pay dearly if they give you the wrong information on these subjects. So down below I have different pamphlets talking about different categories. The first thing you will see is a pamphlet on how to deal with a bad lawyer. In there I share with you the rules of professional conduct that lawyers are supposed to abide by. They have to diligently, competently represent you. They have to communicate with you as far as how to accomplish your goals. A lot of attorneys tell you, I'm not going to do that. I don't do it that way. That's not how it's done. And then they blow you off, and it's the end of the discussion. But the rules of professional conduct that the attorney took an oath to uphold or follow, they require that attorney to talk to you about how to accomplish your goals. Not their goals, not the easiest way out. If they say, well, I don't want to tick off the judge because that's fighting too aggressive for you and it might look bad. If we're talking about your parental rights, your rights to your kid, or let's say you're a father, here's a common thing that happens. You're a father and you're falsely accused of domestic violence so the mother can get a restraining order in order to get control of the kids in the house. It's very common in family court. All you got to do is Google the topic, false restraining orders or bogus restraining orders. You'll see it's very common. You can actually look up an article online and Google Seattle Weekly Ripped Apart. And especially if you're in the King County area, they specifically wrote an article about how restraining orders are abused in the family court system, specifically in the Seattle and Kent courthouses. And there's attorneys and judges and people in there who admit that it goes on. But it's astonishing how nobody wants to do anything about it, but everybody admits how corrupt it is. So, I'm saying that to say I'm not making something up based on my own individual personal experience. It's prevalent and there's all kinds of resources out there about it. So let's say you are being falsely accused of domestic violence and there's a restraining order hearing coming up, or maybe you've already had one, and your attorney says, well, let's not say that the mother's lying or she's manipulative or controlling or psychotic or whatever the root cause of her lying is. Let's not say that because we don't want to make the judge mad or we don't want to look bad. That's, to be blunt, that's a punk, sissy, coward, limp-wristed, yellow, what do they call it, a scared attorney. They're just scared. They don't want to fight for you. I guarantee it. I mean, they're supposed to diligently represent you. If you're being falsely accused, they're worried about calling the false accuser a liar? Think about that for a second. So, this pamphlet right here below talks about how to light a fire under your attorney's butt, and if they haven't been fighting for you, if they did stuff corrupt or they were lazy, the rules of professional conduct talk about the commentary on the rule. When it talks about diligence, it says that there's nothing more frustrating than dealing with procrastination from an attorney. If you have an attorney that's procrastinating, they're violating the rules of professional conduct. And the rules of professional conduct have a specific commentary that talks about how frustrating it is and how it can totally screw your case if the attorney procrastinates. And most of them do. Once they get your big fat retainer and they bring in that money, they could just sit on it. And who's going to make them do something about it? If you want them to move or do something on your case and they say, oh, let's wait until trial to prove our case, or let's wait down the road, and they're procrastinating, who's going to do something about it? The lawyer police? The lawyer police is the Bar Association, and it's filled with attorneys who do the same thing. They look out for each other. The Bar Association has been sued for sexual harassment and racism toward women of color who work there. And then when a whistleblower blew the whistle on them, you can look up, I think it's Kathy Blinka, B-L-I-N-K-A. When she sued them for firing her for blowing the whistle, her case got thrown out because it's all the lawyers, they're all in on it. So the only person who's really going to fight for you in your case and make sure your lawyer does what he or she is supposed to do is you, because you're the only one who cares about your case, really, to be honest with you. And it's sad the attorneys should care more, and they're getting paid a whole lot of money to care and fight for you. So this pamphlet below that talks about how to deal with a bad lawyer, you should download that and check it out. It's free, and it can't hurt anything to read through it. And I guarantee you're going to get some information your lawyer isn't telling you. The second pamphlet is talking about how to deal with police or CPS. The police and CPS, I grew up with a goody two-shoes vision of the police. I've learned that anybody in any position of authority can abuse that authority, and it happens on a regular basis. A CPS worker knocks on your door because somebody lied about you. A neighbor saw you yelling at your kid who was acting crazy, and then the neighbor thinks that you're acting too harshly, so the neighbor calls and gets in your business, and next thing you know, CPS is knocking on the door. So CPS knocks on the door and says they need to come in and take a look. And most of you parents out there, for some reason, just let them waltz right in because you got nothing to hide. But guess what? Below in this section, in section 2, there's a video where a professor who also used to be an attorney, I'm not sure if he's still practicing, he talks about top 10 reasons not to talk to the police. Because the more you talk to somebody, the more you invite them into your life, the more fodder or the more ammunition you give them for their agenda. There's a lot of innocent people in jail, and they're in jail only because they ran their mouth. They started talking about the details of a case, and they were a witness to the case or a witness to a crime, and they knew so much detail, the cops decided, well, you know so much, you must have done it, so let's prosecute you. So CPS is the same. And I ask people this all the time. If somebody knocks at your door, a total stranger, and says, I want to come in, and you don't want them to come in, you just say no. But if CPS knocks on the door, that's a total stranger also. Why would you let them in your home? Especially given the history that CPS has. CPS is full of a bunch of mentally ill social workers. You know, a lot of women who were abused when they were younger, raped, or had something vicious or horrible happen to them. They get into the social work industry, and they're trying to rescue and save the world, so they always believe the worst because they're looking at everything through their own personal experience. And they're presuming guilt. They can't believe because maybe they were a victim and sadly they didn't have an outlet to speak out when they were victimized. So they assume that every victim out there must be telling the truth, or somebody's hiding it because, like, if somebody comes knocking on your door and you and your wife, or let's say your new girlfriend and your ex-baby's mom calls CPS, and you live with your new girlfriend and your new wife, and your ex-baby's mom is mad because of your new relationship and calls CPS on you. So that CPS worker might assume that that child has no outlet, or you're hiding something because it's not coming out. All because that particular CPS worker didn't have a voice when she was younger. So this is the type of dangerous people you're dealing with. And CPS makes thousands of dollars every time they take a kid from a home and put them in foster care. There's a financial incentive. It's a child slave trade. If you just Google CPS corrupt, you'll see all kinds of videos about how CPS violates people's rights, takes children without any evidence. And actually, the CPS workers sign the petitions to court. And they're not lawyers. So they're drafting court documents and committing the crime of practicing law without a license. And it happens every day. It's astonishing. I mean, I can't write court documents for you and sign my name to them because I'm not a lawyer. And CPS workers can't do that either unless they're a lawyer. And they do it all the time. So if you ever have a juvenile case or a dependency case with CPS workers sign a document, report them to the Bar Association and the police for practicing law without a license. It's time to stop that crime. So if they come knocking at your door Let me ask you this. If anybody knocks at your door and they say they want to come in, even if it's the police, what do they need to come into your home and search it? If they want to search your home, the Constitution requires what? And this isn't me giving you legal advice. This is, I'm just telling you and asking you if you know what's common knowledge throughout the entire country. The Constitution says that there won't be unreasonable search and seizures and without warrant. They need a warrant. Nobody can tell you what to do, and nobody can do anything in your life unless there's a court order requiring you to. Now, if you're committing a crime and a cop says stop, then that's the other exception. But if a CPS worker doesn't have a warrant, I'm not letting somebody into my home, especially if they're a total stranger. How do you know if it's a male CPS worker? How do you know that's not a pedophile coming in to stake out your case? How do you just totally trust a total stranger? Because they hold up a badge like this and flash a badge and say, I'm with CPS, and we are with the government, and we rule your life, and you don't have any individual freedoms? I mean, think about it. Think about what you're doing when you just let CPS waltz into your house. And then people say, well, that'll look bad if I don't let them in because I got nothing to hide. If you got nothing to hide and you're innocent until proven guilty in a court of law, why let a whole bunch of people just run through your house? What's the point? You're opening the door to a bunch of mentally ill sociopaths, sometimes predators who have a financial incentive to take your kids from you. And there's people who have suffered because they just made that first mistake of just letting them in and opening the door and surrendering their lives to a total stranger. Remember, this is total strangers. Just because they have a job with a title doesn't mean they're not corrupt, they're not crazy, and they're not perverted. Now, there's good people in CPS. They'll make the good people follow the proper procedure. If somebody gets mad at you for saying, I want to exercise my constitutional right and say no to you coming into my home, you total stranger, without a warrant, if they get mad at you about that, there's something wrong with them and not you. Okay? So, I'm never letting a CPS worker into my home. And next time I have a guardian ad litem, I'm definitely videotaping the situation and asking their permission to record it. You know, I've learned my lesson with all these social workers who are mentally ill and psychotic. Also below you see number 3 is a free pamphlet on dealing with mediation. Total scam. You go to mediation, you sit down and you talk to somebody who is sitting there watching you negotiate with your ex. If your ex doesn't want to work it out, you're paying a mediator to sit there and watch you not work it out. What kind of sense does that make? And if you guys can get along and mediate and settle, why do you need a total stranger to help you? Why can't you send your proposal to, you know, if you both you have attorneys, or even if you don't, or one of you does, why can't you send your proposal to the other side, and they send their proposal, and then you negotiate and meet halfway? Why do you have to add another stranger in there? You know, there's this brainwashing that goes on with these bumbling, fumbling idiots in the courthouse. All these judges and lawyers and idiots refer people to mediation. Why? Because that's what they've always done. They think, oh, if you mediate and resolve it without going to trial, that's a good thing. And of course it is. But they've created this hustle and con and scam where they can insert a mediator and they can make money off of you. An extra person inserted into the conflict, just like a GAL or parenting evaluator, and all kinds of specialists, supervisors for visitation and reunification specialists. They want to insert as many money-making people as possible. And if you look at any of the trailers or get the movie Divorce Corp, you will see it's all about money. So, if I want to mediate with my ex, I'll just either talk to her or talk to her lawyer. Now, in my case, her lawyer just loves to oppose everything I do just because he gets some kind of perverted, psychotic, erotic arousal out of fighting all the time. And he doesn't want his client to ever be civil. But if you have somebody that's willing to be civil, just talk to the attorney or talk to the other side or go to their office. If I'm representing myself and the other side has an attorney, I'm not going to pay a mediator to come and watch us talk. I'll set up a time to go to the attorney's office and talk to the attorney. That can be your mediation. That's what I would do. So, I talk about how mediation is a scam, and a lot of you have already wasted money on mediation and you realize that it's a scam. And number 4, my parenting plan notes. Now that's only for the state of Washington. I've accumulated notes about the factors the court has to consider in determining a parenting plan. Like if you're doing all the parenting, if you're doing all the taking the kid to the doctor, and the other side doesn't do that, that's a parenting function that the law says that they have to consider. And I'm just quoting the law, what it says on the internet. I'm not even giving you legal advice. It just says that plain as day. And it says what the best interest of the child is. If you lived with somebody and you were married and you're divorced now, it says the best interest of the child is the normal pattern of interaction. Well, if the child is around you both 24 hours, I don't see why the court doesn't automatically assume they need to be around both of you as much as possible. That's one scam that you need to realize that I know about in the family court system. They think that one parent has custody and the other parent's a visitor because the child needs stability in one home. That's bullcrap. You think a child is saying, man, I love these four walls way more than time with my dad. Or I love these four walls way more than time with my mom. When the parents are together and the family is intact, psychologists say spend as much quality and quantity of time with your kids as possible. That's when you're together. When the family is ripped apart, the children are traumatized. Everybody knows that. So the court is saying the family's ripped apart, so what we need to do is make one parent where they feel secure and stable, and let's push this other parent out and make them a visitor for the sake of the children. That's bull crap. If the parents need both parents, if the children need both parents equally, and the family's ripped apart, the obvious remedy is to keep them together as much as possible. Well, the parents are apart, so the next thing is to have the child visit each parent as much as possible. But the courts don't think like that. Why? Because the courts do what they've always done, just because, you know, when a lawyer gets out of law school, they're trained by that law firm to do what that law firm says. That law firm says, well, the mother needs to have custody and the dad gets every other weekend. And so the next 10 years they practice law, that's what they do. And they tell the younger next attorneys, well, you know, the mom always gets custody and that's what the courts always order. That's because you, the lawyers, always do it that way and you never fight differently. So that's what always is the result. So lawyers never go in there and fight for a father, say, or maybe a mother who had a drug pass and now she's recovering and she's back on. They think that that's too hard, and the courts, you never win that case in court, so they don't fight for you. So they do the same old just because that's what they've done. No rhyme or reason, no common sense, no compassion for human beings, because most of these people are sociopaths and they're totally callous to human beings and their feelings. Or they're greedy and money hungry, or they've gotten so tired of all this baby daddy and baby mama drama over and over that your case is just like all the rest of them. So they get drained and tired, and they want to put forth as little effort as possible. So I say all that to say there's more to it than just the same old MO. This down below, number 4, it says parenting plan notes, and it talks about the laws that the court has to consider. And if I was you, I would make my attorney argue that. If I was you, I wouldn't have an attorney. I would argue these things myself, in my case. But if you have to have an attorney, you keep on with an attorney, I would make my attorney look at that and argue those things, especially if they're in my favor. One of the parenting functions that the court has to consider is who exercises good judgment. If one parent exercises good judgment, and the other parent lets the kid play in the street and without supervision, or goes to the mall, one of those play areas, and falls asleep on the couch area and lets a kid play while they're asleep, and a pedophile can come and snatch a kid, that's not good judgment. And the law says good judgment is a parenting function. And the law says if you neglect to perform parenting functions, the court can restrict you as a parent from access to your kids. But I never hear attorneys telling that to their clients. I never hear attorneys informing that to their clients. That's things that they can argue. You just hear attorneys, especially, now I talk about fathers all the time because they're the ones who get screwed the most. I know mothers, if you're a mother, I know you get screwed sometimes, but the ratio is like 90-10 or 80-20 at best of the ratio of men and women getting screwed in family court. But that being said, I care about the kids first and foremost, and that both parents are equally involved unless there's real abuse going on. And there's so many false allegations, you all know that we have to just deal with what's really going on. But the attorneys don't tell you these factors that the courts are supposed to consider, and they don't argue them, and they go into court and put a half-hearted, halfway, half-whatever effort. They just have you fill out a declaration, go through the motions, and whatever the court says is what they say. They don't get in the judge's face and say, you have to do this. The law says this right here, and you have to do it because it's obvious who's exercising good judgment. It's obvious what the best interest of the children is. It's obvious that the children need both parents, and we should have a 50-50 and not an every other weekend scenario. But you don't see attorneys doing that. Why? Because the judge or commissioner they're going in front of might be a pro tem judge who's a lawyer, and they just saw them at a cocktail party, so they don't want to get in their face because that might hurt their feelings, and they're trying to move their way up in the family law world and get a good reputation with everybody. Who knows? And then the last one is a bunch of constitutional case law about your constitutional rights as a parent. Just citing a list of cases that I found. Just FYI, you can read them and look them up however you want. So hopefully this information is useful. Hopefully you'll read it and find out that your attorney is shucking and jiving you and charging you thousands of dollars for not doing the things that I talk about here or giving you bad advice. And it talks to you about how to deal with these scenarios thoroughly. You know, I have a right to tell you how to deal with the cops because I'm just biting off of and copying off of what this professor and lawyer does. And how to deal with CPS because I know what my rights are with CPS. So hopefully you find this information helpful. And feel free, if you need more detail and you want to set up a consultation, to call or text or email me and set up a phone or in-person consultation if you want some one-on-one talk about your situation or what I did or whatever you might need. Thank you.